welcome to the Metapod, the Pokemon TCG podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. This is take 3, actually, of this podcast episode, because the first time I started and Sean wasn't ready. The second time I mysteriously had no voice, apparently.
Well, I could hear you, but OBS couldn't hear you.
Our recording software just didn't want to acknowledge my existence. But third time is a charm here on this podcast, but I gotta ask the real big question first, the one that everybody is wondering. Sean, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did watch the Super Bowl, Superb Owl, as people that don't have the rights to say Super Bowl sometimes call it, the big game. I did watch a bit of it. I didn't watch the full of it, but I probably watched like 2/3 of the game.
I was hanging out with some of my friends, and I ended up watching the whole game. And
Ooh.
you know, as soon as the Rams just got that last score, when the Bengals went for it on 4th down, and just like kind of a terrible decision by Joe Burrow, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I just like packed up and went to bed immediately.
Yeah, that was rough at the end. I mean, I don't know what people actually think. Like, people might not like the fact that there was some like penalties, you know, against the Bengals at the end near the end zone, but like that was obviously pass interference. I'm sorry.
This is sports as always. People are never happy about the officiating in sports. Like, that's just a statement of fact.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, overall it seemed like an interesting game. I think it was very low scoring for I think what a lot of people were expecting. Like, I know that the Rams defense is good, but like 23 to 20? Seems
something about like that. Yeah, 23-20, I think it was.
Yeah, it seems kind of low. So, especially given like the two teams' offensive prowess. But yeah, losing OBJ, Odell Beckham, pretty tough, but Rams were able to overcome. But I'm sure
he got his touchdown, and that was it. But Sean, we're going to talk about the touchdowns of the Pokemon trading card game today. I'm going to keep talking to you because you were actually one of the lucky few creators that got to open a very cool product from the Pokemon Company. So, Sean, if you really want to see how it went, you should go to Sean's YouTube channel and watch his 2 videos. But, Sean, how do you feel about Brilliant Star?
I mean, I'm flexing some shiny cardboard right now. How do I feel about it? I feel the same way that I think Celios posted something as well. I'm feeling the same way I think a lot of people are, which is this is just strictly the best set in at least the last 2 years. Since at least Cosmic Eclipse. And even Cosmic Eclipse, I would say it's better than Cosmic Eclipse because I think that Arceus Dialga Palkia was obviously a very playable card. And in that set, you did have character rares. So, like, that's all good, right? But outside of that, I don't think, like, the other archetypes that were hyped up in Cosmic Eclipse was, like, Reshiram and Zekrom.
Yeah.
Just kind of didn't go anywhere.
It flopped.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the set was actually not amazing from a playability, whereas this is, I think, very much the opposite. And I really did enjoy opening it. After seeing some of the other creators' boxes, it's amazing. Like, I think my box was actually not great compared to, because like I did get a V-Star. I got an Arceus. Don't get me wrong. Like, I will not turn down.
Money.
I will not turn down an Arceus. And I did get, Control Waifu in Roseanne's backup.
Let's go.
Which I know Jake was very excited to see. But outside of that, I didn't get any secret rares in my box or my ETB. I only got 1 V-Star total, which I think is like very average. So the fact that I enjoyed the box so much and it was a very average box by all comparison, I'm like, that's just pretty good. So I had a lot of fun opening it. Y'all can watch the video of me opening it up. It's kind of long, but skip ahead to the shiny parts if you want.
I will say, like, because I watched a couple different people open, and everybody kind of had the same thing of, like, sticky cards.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people were having problems, like, with the cards, how card tricks go in, like, YouTube videos and stuff. You go one by one. I saw a lot of people just, like, they would have like four cards like stuck together when they're trying to pull it. And so I know you said like sometimes you're just bad at opening, but I think it was like a kind of a thing like all around. And then also I saw a lot on Twitter, like especially because pre-releases just happened this weekend. By the way, thank you if you tweeted at us your pre-release polls, super appreciate it. But there were a lot of pictures of like cards that were miscut. I feel like
I got a miscut card.
yeah, I remember you showed that in the video spoilers.
Yeah, like I want to. Oh, here it is. I mean, you're gonna have anybody on YouTube may be able to see it, but let me see if I can. You see that corner there?
Yeah.
That little white strip. So I have a character rare Oranguru, and it's got basically some extra paper on the side.
Is your Oranguru also warping already?
Oh my god, these are all. Now, granted, I will say my basement is not the best for humidity control.
Okay.
Because we have a boiler. It's been cold in New York. I have this problem with all the cards in the card games, but I mean.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw that bend. I was like, you look like you have Japanese Pokemon cards.
Yeah, no, I have Pringles. I have my cards are now I will say the V-Star is not nearly as warped.
Mm-hmm.
All of my cards, even my non-foils though, like I have Magic cards that are non-foil that are warped. So my humidity control in my basement is particularly bad. Mm-hmm. You know, one day I will not have this problem maybe, but yeah,
Sorry
they do
call you out.
No, please. Like, but I will say the character rares, because they are foiled top to bottom,
mm-hmm.
they are much more warped than some of the other cards. So just something to keep in mind for those of you out there who collect. Expect warping, but I will say I don't think this is a thing uncommon to any card game now, because like Magic, very bad warping. Digimon can have bad warping. Pokemon, like it just seems like if you're doing foiling treatments, like especially like I said, Arceus V-Star is foiled, but it's like a texture foil, and I think it's a different foiling process. But if you're doing just a basic foiling, like full layer, I think every card game has the same problem now. So
yeah, like it all eventually gets there, but I didn't think that they would have started already.
Oh no, they start cards. Give it 2 hours and they start warping.
Dang. Yeah. Maybe it's because I always like throw cards in sleeves and either put them in my deck box or in my binder like immediately. Like I don't have cards just laying out ever.
I mean, like I said, I opened these and they've just been sitting on my desk since, because I haven't put them away.
Yeah, I guess like I just never noticed. But I will say though, going back to like kind of how you're saying the best set in a couple of years, like Cosmic Eclipse did have a lot of like great trainers. We saw the tag team trainers, Cynthia and Caitlyn, Mallow and Lana, even Belelba and Bryson, man, which eventually got banned. Like it had some like really, really good trainers, but the Pokemon themselves were somewhat lacking in a sense. Like we had some good support Pokemon like Oricorio, GX, right? ADP didn't really get its like Hall of Fame entrance until like Zacian came out, so it was a little bit delayed. But this set is a little bit different, because I think like Lumineon is going to have an impact right away.
Yep.
Right? I think even like the Liepard as well. We're going to talk about a lot of the cards of like the buy list later, but
no, I mean, I
just feel like there's Pokemon cards that are going to make an impact right away, like right out of the gate, instead of just taking time.
Yeah, you have setup Pokemon. You have two prizers that can be their own decks in Raichu and Entei. And I think the problem with Cosmic Eclipse is it followed. This is just my gut feeling, like on this card design. It followed right on the heels of Unified Fusions, which had Mewtwo and Mew. So like I think they were now very concerned, like, Mewtwo Mew is going to be in format for a whole year. Some GXs are going to rotate out. And we have to make sure that whatever we print does not absolutely steamroll Sword and Shield, which they knew was on the way. So, like, I do think they actually held back on the design of the GX just because they had previously printed a Mewtwo and Mew. So, that's my guess.
Well, guess how that turned out, where Sword and Shield base set format. Arceus Palkia Tag Team GX and Zacian was easily the best deck.
Yeah.
That or super aggressive Chinchino Control Mill.
Yeah. Jake, before we go into the 5-star review, though, I just wanted to point out for the viewers, for the people watching on YouTube, you can see it, but for the people listening, Jake and I are both wearing our Cliffside merch, our Purple Cliff merch.
Jack has been a personal friend of mine for a while, so I bought one of the sweatshirts. This was the first series of sweatshirts that he sold. I believe you just bought this one like a couple weeks ago.
I would have bought it, I think 4 months ago. But yeah, it was like he took the orders and then he had to have the company print it. They're very, very good quality. They're very thick. These I don't know how yours is. Mine's very thick because it's like double layered. It's got the pink.
I think yours is a little bit different. Yeah. I think like the second, because your Ditto face has like a shine on it too. Yeah, like yours is like the second series, we'll call it.
But it's very nice.
Mine is the first series.
It says like Cliffside on the side there, which is kind of cool.
I can't even tell what.
Oh, yours does. Okay, yeah.
I have. Yeah.
So, but yeah, for the Purple Cliff fans out there, yeah.
So Metapod podcast lore.
Yes.
This is the arc. But Sean, as always, we love reading the reviews that our viewers and listeners leave. So let's get into the 5-star review this week.
Yeah, I actually have it pulled up this week because Apple is being kind again.
We figured it out.
Yes. This one is from Slam Crazy. Let me pop that up again. Quality stuff. I've been listening to your podcast for about a month now, and I really enjoy it. The variety of news and information from competitive play to collector's insights is the sweet spot for a Pokemon TCG podcast. Thank you. Personally, I'm more of a collector, but I like to keep up with the competitive scene too. You guys make it really easy to digest all the new info and talking about new cards and strategies. I really appreciate that. My favorite episode so far would have to be the one with Zach Lesage. I'm familiar with his YouTube, and hearing him on the show was a sweet treat. He's really knowledgeable about the game and such a nice dude. Hats off to you guys for inviting him as a guest. Hopefully, he'll be back soon. Nice.
I mean, yeah, Zach is huge brain. I mean,
yeah.
Look back at all of his like personal achievements, playing the Pokemon trading card game for so long to, like I'm very happy that he was able to come in. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it because I was like moving and stuff.
Yes.
But I'm very happy that we were still able to produce like a great episode. So hats off to you, Sean, for running that show that week.
Yeah, I think is that the only episode that I have run that you have not been on? I think so. Yeah, so
I think I've done 2 and you've done 1.
Yeah. So you still get one more makeup day, one more day off until we're even.
I get a paid time off.
Right. Exactly.
I will say though, your solo day was not really solo because you had a guest on. Like I think the 2 that I did, I just ran solo.
Yeah, tough. That is very tough. It's like you're streaming, but we don't do this podcast live. So you're kind of just talking to yourself for 45 minutes. Which is impressive.
It's pretty tough sometimes, but throughout our tenure, Sean, we have done several different things with the podcast. Throughout the time, we have evolved from audio only to video here on YouTube, and we're thinking about evolving again. If you haven't been able to tell, maybe you're a regular YouTube listener, the Metapod podcast is officially on its own YouTube channel. The Metapod YouTube channel. This is going to be the home of the Metapod podcast. I'm just thinking of moving it now away from my channel. Not necessarily because I don't want it on the channel. I mean, I'm still going to edit the videos every week and upload them. Podcasts, if you listen to a lot and maybe you watch/listen to some on YouTube, they have like their own thing. And there's a lot of cool things that they can do. So we mentioned last week that we're going to have a goal for when we hit 100 ratings of the Metapod podcast. We're currently on Apple iTunes at 79. So after 21 more reviews, we're going to start doing extra Metapod content. Now, these won't specifically be podcast episodes that you'll be able to hear on like Spotify, Apple, things like that. This is going to be more like YouTube extra content. So a couple ideas that Sean and I have, now that I have a full-time job, I can buy a little bit more product than zero. So maybe every once in a while, Sean and I do a little bit of a pack battle type thing. Maybe we have like a product special episode, because Pokey Beach, where we get a lot of our news from, they post a monthly article every month regarding Pokemon accessories, like Pokemon product that is going to be coming out in the next month. And so on an audio podcast, that's a little bit hard to talk about sometimes. I've tried it before. It's very, very difficult to do. So we thought that would be like kind of a cool monthly thing that we do. And showcasing it on YouTube. And we're not saying that we're going to pump out like 5 videos a week. I have a full-time job, Sean working, like doing his own content as well. So this would be, I don't want to put like a specific number out there, but you could expect like a couple extra videos outside of the podcast, like per month.
Yeah.
And there'll be fun things. There'll be different things. I mean, the possibilities are endless. So if you want to see that type of extra content, make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And also, we super appreciate the Spotify listeners as well, and everybody else that listens. Maybe you're not on Apple iTunes, but thank you, and thank you. Sean, do you have any words that you want to shout at the top of your lungs?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is check if you're listening and you aren't following on YouTube, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you're already watching it on the new channel. So just subscribe for when we hit that milestone. But yeah, if you're listening, you can go subscribe to the new YouTube channel. Link is in the description of the podcast stuff. All the podcasts will still continue being audio podcasts. I want to just clarify, if you just like listening to the podcast, wherever you listen, you're good. Don't worry.
Yes.
No stress. It's if you want to watch whatever the ancillary videos we have. That's all that's about.
It's just a little bit of extra fun, because Sean and I are always looking to spice up life.
Yeah.
We do, though, have 93 ratings on Spotify, which is
dang.
a very nice number. I will say 93 ratings. So, I mean, if you're on Spotify, go ahead and give us a rating as well.
Well, Jake, do you want to make it? Do you want to make it 100 on Spotify or 100 on Apple, or whatever one gets there first?
On both.
Okay, when we get 100 on both? Okay.
Yeah, why don't we do 100 on both?
So if you have rated us on Spotify but not on Apple, and you want to see whatever that crazy stuff we're going to do on YouTube, go vice versa. Just do it. Just do it.
Go subscribe to the Metapod YouTube channel. Again, link in the description. Link will be in the description below. But Sean, let's just get to the news. We're done pumping out our own content, pumping out our own, promos, self promos. Let's get into the Pokemon TCG news. Now, this first one is going to be geared towards competitors. This is off PokeBeach.com. This was pretty big news a couple days ago when this dropped. This is the hot topic that has been in the back of our heads, I would say, for the last couple months. Florida Regional Championships have been canceled. Sean, the Pokemon Company announced the cancellation of the Florida Regional Championships. That was supposed to be held through April 1st and the 3rd at the Orange County Convention Center. A lot of this has to do with government regulations and restrictions within the state of Florida, which is the reason why the Pokemon, there goes into way more than this, but I think that this was like kind of the tipping point, I would say.
Yeah. We say government restrictions and regulations, and if you're not familiar with Florida, you may think that Florida is like, oh, they're making it so you can't have large events. Actually, the wacky thing about this one is Florida is trying to just be like, no restrictions. And if you have been following if you're planning to go to any regional, you will know that you need to have proof of vaccination in order to enter. Is it or a negative COVID test, or just you have to have proof of vaccination, right?
I do not know that
I don't know.
officially, and I do not want to like take a guess.
Okay, fair enough. But basically, like you have to have proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test, some combination of that, in order to attend the event. Which is,
Basically,
yeah,
more regulations than the
yes.
state of Florida.
And Florida said that making somebody prove vaccination is now not okay. Like you're not allowed to do that. So it Pokemon heard that and was like, "What?" But like we're a private and then so that's why they went ahead and canceled this, because they're just kind of like, we think it's important that our players be vaccinated. So we cannot abide by the state's new mandate of not allowing companies to check vaccination status. It's very strange.
This is the reminder that this is only affecting the Florida Regional Championship. So if you scheduled for that, cancel your things unless you still want to go to Florida, then like by all means, I guess. But there will be no regional championships held during that weekend. The Salt Lake Regional Championships, though, if you're planning on going to that, is still going to be in mid-March, so March 18th through the 20th. And Sean, as we continue to get closer and closer, it'll be interesting to see if more of these go down, maybe new ones pop up. We have no idea.
I mean, yeah, I think for me the biggest question mark, I feel like all these are safe, right? Because Florida, if there was one in Texas, I would have the same concerns about if they were to be like, "Oh, you can't have a vaccine mandate." Fine. Most of these other states are pretty, I would say, reasonable with their restrictions and regulations. Like I don't expect to see any of that from Utah, Indianapolis, New Jersey, Vancouver, or Milwaukee. Like I think those will all probably kick off unless something unexpected happens.
And I mean, even the European and Oceania, Latin America events as well. We're not just talking about American events,
Yeah.
or North American events, I should say, with Canada as well. Europe is still having their regional in late March,
Yep.
I believe, early April, AmCham, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, et cetera, et cetera.
Actually, the first one that is coming up is actually in Oceania, in Brisbane. Brisbane. Brisbane? Is it Brisbane?
I think it's Brisbane.
Oh, I mean, it says Brisbane, but, Australians out there, holler.
That's the only thing that's the only thing I've heard of. I've also never been over there. So,
I haven't either.
I mean, I don't know.
But it'll be fun to see how that one goes. Now, Oceania is a little bit smaller than some of the other regions, but it will definitely be the biggest official event in years, literally.
I mean, it'll be the only event in
right,
years.
right. So any of you who are gearing up for Salt Lake City, I think keeping an eye on that one in Australia is, I think, a very good call for what you might want to play, what you might want to bring to the tournament.
And it'll be interesting. I mean, I want just as much as the next person for IRL events to come back, for the Pokemon Championship Series to come back, but I want to do it safely.
Yeah.
And I that's the only way that I want to do it. So it'll be interesting again, but we'll see. I do plan on going to the Indianapolis event.
Oh, so have you, Jake and I briefly talked about this.
I have not confirmed it.
Okay.
But I do plan on going because I got a lot of people in Indianapolis, and that's usually the end of sports because that's like finals week for a lot of college institutions. So I'm pretty sure I'll be free on that weekend. But I mean, I can't guarantee anything because that's also like postseason. So you never know how far like one of my teams could go like to the NCAA championship,
yeah.
I can't promise, but I do plan on going to that one.
All right. Well, if you're tentatively planning, Jake, then I'm going to tentatively plan as well and say I might go to that one as well, because for those of you long-term listeners may know, Jake and I have never actually met in person.
Nope.
Which is wild.
Sean is actually just a figure of my imagination.
That's right. That's how I was able to get this hoodie to match Jake's. Jake was like, "We need some matching outfits on this show," and just conjured it.
Sean's
So.
actually a VTuber.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't know. I will tentatively plan to go as well, Jake. I don't know if I will play. Probably. If I go, I should play, right?
Yeah,
But
why not?
we'll see. I don't think Jake or I don't expect either of us to make day 2 if we play, but you
Are
know.
you kidding me? I'm winning the whole thing. You heard it here first.
All right.
How dare you doubt me?
Well, I mean, okay, fine. Speaking of winning the whole thing, Jake, if you're going to win the whole thing, you need to use cards, right? To win the whole thing.
You do.
And
This might be the best transition we've ever done.
I don't usually do the transitions.
All right, what are you saying?
I'm just saying, you said the best transition I've done. I never said it was the best transition we've done.
I said we've done.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I'm pretty sure I said we've
That was
done.
just a low-key burn, I guess.
But you know what does burn is your wallet, because sometimes you just gotta buy Pokemon cards. So we have done the set list review for Starbirth, which was the Japanese version of this set. And so throughout, because American sets are combinations of Japanese sets, we've pretty much gone over all of these cards, what is good, potential decks, things like that. So now that the set list is out for Brilliant Star, now that we have, the trainer gallery, we have, all these secret rares, etc., we're going to go over kind of a buy list, especially because, we have these events coming up now that are scheduled. People need to buy cards. So what cards should you be buying from Brilliant Star if you're buying singles? If you pull stuff, you're opening boxes because the set is really exciting to open. It's really, really cool to open. What card should you get excited about? Things of that nature. So, Sean.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. What card are you looking to buy?
I will be looking to buy the RCSV and V-Star. It's the obvious choice, but this one for me, the card itself, I expect to be playable for the foreseeable future. I think for me, like if we think about Brilliant Star as almost being like a new block because they've introduced the V-Star mechanic, the same way that Zacian was just a very playable card for the entirety of the time that it's been in format, almost up till now, right? I think it's fallen off a little bit finally, but it had a solid 2-year run. I think Arceus V-Star is probably a similar card. And I don't know. I mean, I think if you are on a budget, but not like a hardcore budget, like where you only can build one deck and it can only be a single price deck. No, but if you have a reasonable budget, I would look to pick up 2 Vs and 2 V-Stars. I think that is a very reasonable number for most decks that are going to play this. I will say I'm going to quickly switch over and tell you what not to do, though, because if you're listening to this and you're really gung-ho and you want to take our advice, do not go and buy them on pre-sale from TCG Player. This price is absurd. $75.
Yeah.
No. I can tell you right now, don't do this. Wait until the official release. There are no events until mid-March anyways, in the US at least. So you will have time to get your cards in. And I expect Arceus V-Star to probably drop back down to a price of about $20 to $25. That, Mew VMAX is sitting in that same spot. That seems to be the price for the most playable, highest rarity card in a format, is about $20 to $25 typically. So that's what I would expect that to be at. So my guess would be a 2-2 line will run you maybe $70, $60 to $70 in that range. So,
and I'll just say this before we go any further. I'm never gonna tell you how to spend your money, but if you want tips on how to more efficiently use your money in the Pokemon trading card game, don't pre-order cards as of right now, because right now, if you think about supply and demand, right? There's a high demand for Brilliant Star, but the supply is really low. All we have on the market right now are content creators who have opened these boxes, who usually don't sell their cards, right?
Yeah.
After they open them. but the rest of the supply market is pre-release kits. You know, pre-release kits don't have infinite amounts of packs that come inside. You know, it's not necessarily booster boxes except for like prize packs. What I'm trying to say is there are not a lot of Arceus V-Stars right now, so the price is just super high. Once Brilliant Stars actually releases, then stuff is going to start tanking. Stuff is going to drop way down, like literally half of what they are within a matter of days, like Sean was saying. You know, and then eventually, probably after like 2 weeks, you know, it'll get down to kind of that lower number, like Sean was saying. So just wait. You know, I understand if you're impatient, you know, you want to get it now and you got the budget for it, like go for it. But, you know, if you want to use the most bang for your buck, is what I'm trying to say. That is what I would do. And I agree with Sean in terms of the amount of Arceus V and V-Star. You know, 2-2 is pretty good. I would say like 3-3 at the most is what you're going to need. Like a lot of deck profiles that I've seen so far and things like that, the max has been 3-3, and that's like a specific, like Arceus V-Star is the main Pokemon.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there's going to be so many different combinations that you can pair Arceus V-Star with, because it's a colorless Pokemon.
Yeah.
Its V-Star power is very, very good, and the attack as well is pretty good also. So I think it's a really, really cool card. I think we're going to see a lot of great things with it. Obviously, in the start, we'll see more versions of it than in the end. But I think it's a really, really good pickup.
Jake, what other... going in, we'll stick with the V Pokemon for now, and then we'll go like different categories. What other V Pokemon would you recommend picking up for players?
I think you could get a play set of Entei Vs.
Oh, okay.
Entei V, for if you do not know, is pretty much like Suicune V. Suicune V with that Fleetfoot ability to draw one card. The attack is the typing and one colorless. You do 20 plus by the benches. This is going to be a very interesting card, and I think it's going to be a pretty good deck. It might not be like S tier, right? It may not be the top deck in the format, but it's going to be one that does well. It's going to be one that wins, and it's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, we are going to get a stadium. I'm going to combo this with a play set of another trainer card as well. We're getting the Stadium Magma Basin, which allows you to accelerate energy from the discard, right?
Yes.
It's accelerated energy from the discard and then attached to damage counters.
Yeah, I'll scroll down to it. May attach a fire energy from the discard pile to one of their benched fire Pokemon. So it is fire-specific Pokemon too. But
which, I mean, is fine, because the thing with Suicune at this point in time, for example, is you have to use Melanie with it. You have to use your supporter for turn. So being able to accelerate energy with something that's not a supporter and instead a stadium, something you can lay down on your turn and pretty much guarantee that you get to use it, right? There's no chaotic swell in the format to bump your stadium as soon as you put it down. There's none of that stuff. So kind of that, what I call like passive stadium. I call that type of stadium a passive stadium that you can guarantee use during your turn. That's going to be super valuable with an Entei deck. And I mean, we have plenty of pivot Pokemon right now in the format, you know, like Mew V. Mew V can be pretty cool. I mean, it only grabs item cards, but like that's a good pivot Pokemon that we've seen. I'm sorry, I said Mew V. I meant the Mew from Celebrations. The little baby Mew from Celebrations.
Yeah.
My apologies on that. I said Mew V. That's not what I meant. Mew V does have free retreat, though.
I mean, you could play a Mew V in here.
That could be your free retreat pivot Pokemon, but I don't recommend it. But, you know, that kind of thing, you know, where you have that philosophy, because 230 HP is not necessarily a lot of HP when you talk about Pokemon because Pokemon will get one hit KO'd left and right. You can put like toughness capes on it to give it 280 HP as a tool card, similar to what you do with Suicune, which is 20 HP more than Suicune V. So that might help your math a little bit in several areas. But I mean, I think it's an interesting card that I think is going to make some waves in the format.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think if you're looking for, I would say maybe a rogue deck, I think Entei, of all three of them, I think your point about the acceleration from a non-supporter, that's huge, right? Because you could pair this with both Choice Belt. You could also pair it, if you don't have to use your supporter for a turn on energy acceleration, you can pair it with Leon, right?
Pretty good. Again, like it comes back to the whole thing of not needing to use a supporter to accelerate energy. And I mean, you can even still have like the Drizzile engine like Suicune does. So then you can find those like trainer cards, you know, you can find your stadium really easily. You can find a Leon really easily. Like, I mean, it's going to be interesting, Sean, I think.
All right. I'll move to my next V that you should probably pick up. It depends on how many decks, but I'm going to say Luminion V. For those of you who don't remember what this one does, it's essentially you play it onto your bench, you can search your deck for a supporter card and put it into your hand, which is big, right? As Jake was saying, being able to find those cards when you want is huge. And the fact that you can basically have a quick ball or like any of your Pokemon search that can find this, because essentially now a card that finds you your supporter, it's not going to be as popular as Tapu Lele in terms of cost because its attack is not quite as good. But I think picking up 2 to 4 copies of this, assuming you're going to run more than one deck. If you only run one deck, I think it's actually, you probably only need one of them in a deck. So you might be able to save yourself some money in the early going. But as more of the set comes out, I don't think it will be that hard to pull. I think people will pull. I mean, I pulled one, right? I don't think it'll be that hard.
Sean can do it, so can you.
Right, exactly. No, like the set isn't so enormous that it's like really hard to pull it, I don't think. So I think you'll get, you know, if you can get 2 to 4 of these, every single one of your deck is probably going to want one of this card. So that would be my recommendation, is get 2 to 4 of these, depending on the number of decks that you have. Yeah, it's just a really good consistency card. Same way that Crobat is a card you put in almost every deck.
I will say, though, I have yet to see a deck list with more than 2 Luminions.
Yes.
Most of the ones that I see just have one Luminion V. And people say, like, the Luminion's really, really good.
Yeah.
And that's because, like you mentioned, it has a really, really good ability attached to it. But, you know, just the attack, again, like we mentioned, you know, the attack is just not as good as Tapu Lele. So, unfortunately, it's just not as valuable as a bench spot. But I will say, if you get 2 of them, I think you'll be set. I think you'll be set for its entirety in the standard format.
Yep. Yeah, if you don't need to have multiple decks put together, 2 will be plenty. I fully agree. Jake, what is your next pick?
I think the next pick that I'm going to do is Whimsicott V-Star. So the V and the V-Star, obviously, you know, get them both together. I just love this card. I think it's such a cool card, especially because I think this card is going to boost up Shadow Rider Calyrex. Having the ability, you know, because Calyrex does have energy acceleration, you know, utilizing Trick Wind, can't play any tool cards or special energies from their hand. That's a pretty big, like, buffer. I mean, there's no way to get around that unless you are an expanded and use, like, what's the Poke Ranger?
Yeah, Poke Ranger, yeah. There's no way to get around that in standard.
Yeah, and so with a lot of special energies right now, you know, some of them even needing to be clutched from the hand, right? We think of any Rapid Strike deck. You know, Rapid Strike energies have no acceleration in terms of anything but simply attaching per turn. That's kind of a big deal. We talk about like single strike decks. Yes, they have the Houndoom, but sometimes you need to attach that energy from hand.
Yeah.
And, especially since they don't play a lot of basic energies as well, and single strike decks don't have ways to find those basic energies, you're probably going to stop them several times. And I mean, there's no single strike metal decks besides like Duraludon V, which nobody's playing the V, everyone's playing the VMAX. So you're fine. Don't even trip. And then Mew, man, think about the awesomeness of when you're playing against Mew VMAX, right? And they can get 2 fusion energies in a single turn, right? With Elisa Sparkle, Elza Sparkle, whatever her name is.
Now, is that from hand or is that from deck?
It's from their hand.
Okay, yeah, so that stops that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't stop Elsa Sparkle, but when we talk about
why, so wait, does Eloise Sparkle say from hand or from deck?
It's from deck.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I was asking. Yeah, okay, cool.
Sorry, my apologies. I must have misheard. So you don't stop Elsa Sparkle, right? But if you look at Mew VMAX right now, Mew VMAX is so dominant because of the turn 1 donks. What Pokemon do they use for the turn 1 donk? They use Meloetta. Mm-hmm. With Meloetta, using Elsa Sparkle, you can get 3 energies because you can attach one from hand, right? So now you're cutting off 70 damage right away from the Meloetta. So that's a big deal, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that's kind of a big deal.
If you can pull this attack off,
which it shouldn't theoretically be that hard if you have Shadow Rider Calyrex, right? Like,
that's true.
I mean, especially at Shadow Rider's peak, it has the ability Underworld Door, attach a psychic energy from your hand to, I believe it's one of your Pokemon.
Yeah, but so the problem though is it's still who goes first, right? Because this is an evolution, and so is Shadow Rider. So if Mew goes first, they still can get this off before you can do your attack. But if you go first, you can stop them.
I mean, you can stop them from attaching those special energies. Yes. And then also the V-Star power, 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon energy, or 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy attached to this Pokemon. So, if you're doing 3 energies for the Trick Wind, you're doing 180 damage to any Pokemon on the field. And again, with Underworld Door, Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX, you can probably get like a lot of stuff. You can get a lot of damage off. 60 times is pretty good for energy.
Yeah, and if you have 2 or 3 of the Shadow Riders up, you can go from like only having 2, because you don't want to build up too much energy and make it too much of a target for your opponent. But if you can get 3 more energy onto it all in one turn, plus the attachment from hand, right? Like, you're all of a sudden adding 240 damage onto something that maybe already had 120. So you can go from 2 to 6 energy pretty easily in that deck on one thing. So like, that's a quick way to just like, you take 1 3 prize with Shadow Rider, and then you knock something out with this, and then you're good to go, right? I agree with you. I think this is a good pickup if you want to play Shadow Rider Calyrex especially. So if you just want to take a deck that you already maybe have and want to modify for the Brilliant Stars format, this is a pretty cheap option, I think, to making a deck relevant again.
I think you're only going to ever need no more than 2. So just getting a 2/2 is probably okay. Shadow Rider, I think, has a argument in terms of only playing a 1/1 line of the Whimsicott V-Star. But I think you can include a 2/2 potentially as well, because I do think it's a good attacker.
I would always put, for me, like a 2/2 line of stuff like this is almost necessary, because it's an evolution. So you don't want to spend all of your resources finding this line. You know what I mean? You want to set up your Shadow Riders. That's the important bit, really. And only having a 1/1 means you're going to be spending your Pokeball, your deck search, all of that to find these pieces, which is, I don't think, ideal. And then 2, if you prize either one of that 1/1 line, you're screwed. you're just screwed. You know, especially if you prize the basic, that you can't even start setting up the V Star. So
Yes.
I 2/2s are, I think, like, you're playing with fire if you go on 1/1.
John, do you got another card that you want to talk about in the Vs specifically?
The only other card in the Vs that I would say is worth you considering early in picking up is Raichu. I think Raichu V, similar to your choice of Entei V, if you want a sort of 2 prize focused deck that, you know, you can take and like skew prize trades and all of that stuff, like, I think a Raichu V deck is a really good option. We talked about this on the, you know, video and podcast with Zach, but like, you know, it's basically doing 60 damage for each lightning energy attached to all of your Pokemon, I believe it is. And, you know,
You have to discard the energy.
yes, and you discard it. That's true. That is true. So, you know, but there are ways to like reaccelerate with Flaffy and other things, and you have Manaphy back in the format. You know, you have a bench barrier effectively back in the format, so you can protect your Flaffies. So I think Raichu V, if it's a kind of archetype you want to play, if you already have the Flaffies as well, like, yeah, this might be like a fun rogue deck. Wait, like, you know, a week or two, because this one, I think the price on this one should drop quite a bit.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah, because it is rogue. It is a rogue, like, you know, relatively rogue deck that I think has a high ceiling if the meta allows for it, right? Like, you know, if somebody breaks the deck, it'll be a high ceiling deck.
It's a really cool one. I mean, I've mentioned how I like Raichu V as well. I would just go ahead and get a playset of it.
Yeah.
I think, like you were saying, it's going to be relatively cheap, and you know, it's going to be its own deck. So why not? I mean, it's a basic Pokemon, so you don't have to worry about evolutions and things like that.
Yep. I think before we move on from the Vs, one thing I'll say is Charizard V and V Star, I would stay away from it if you're a player for the first 2 to 3 weeks, because it's always going to have the Charizard tax. Nothing you can do about that. If you have the ability to go to locals, buy some random packs there, maybe you get lucky and you pull 1 or 2, you'll save yourself a buttload of money. And just, I would, unless you are the kind of player that really wants to play this and is willing to spend it, or like you think you can break the deck, which, like, fine, fair enough. This one is going to be a wait till the dust clears, because I don't think the deck itself will warrant the high price tag within the first few weeks. And then once enough product gets opened, you know, it'll always be a little expensive, but I think it will find a nice place to, like, if you really want to just play it for funsies, you won't hurt so bad.
Here's a tip and trick for Charizard cards in terms of players. Build your Charizard V-Star decks on PTCGO. Charizard cards are always cheap on the PTCGO market. Now, even with PTCG Live coming, which is supposedly supposed to be coming at the release of Brilliant Star, that is not confirmed, but that is the speculation. Even more the merrier to build your Charizard V-Star decks online, play in these online tournaments. We don't know how frequent the online tournaments are going to be as the IRL events come back, but if you feel like you've built online a pretty good Charizard V-Star deck, and then you want to go invest, you know, that's a really great way to make sure that you're not wasting your money, right? Because if the best deck of Charizard V-Star you find is only like a 2/2 line, you know, you're not buying the 4/4. You know, you just go ahead and you only buy 2/2.
Yes, that's a very good point. So, Jake, in terms of the other Pokemon, non-Vs, do we want to, what is your first pick in terms of like what people should maybe invest in, pick up?
I think you definitely, I mean, we talk about utility Pokemon that are not the ultra rares. You need to go get the Manaphy, right? We talked about Bench Barrier, and if you don't know what Bench Barrier is, a Manaphy has that ability, except it has a different name. The ability, Wave Veil, prevent all damage done to your bench Pokemon by your opponent's attack. Very, very good. You know, every time we see this effect in the standard format, because it's not new, it is always very good. It's even good in expanded. It's good all the time. This Manaphy has 70 HP, so honestly, if you're playing a level ball deck because of like Drizziles or whatever, Manaphy's an inclusion. Mad Party, get your Mad Party decks back out because Manaphy's going in. Anytime you have little baby bench sitters, and even if Whimsicott VMAX like becomes a really, really good card, like let's say Shadow Rider I was mentioning earlier, let's say that makes a huge comeback, right? That becomes like one of the best decks in format that you need to beat going into a tournament. Manaphy is a viable counter option to like the Whimsicott that could potentially come in, because Whimsicott V-Star is not going to be something that is a surprise. You're going to see the Whimsicott V come down first, and so then you'd be able to prepare to look for it, etc., etc. So although it's not the end all to snipe cards like Jolteon VMAX, Urshifu VMAX, Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, and like Whimsicott V-Star, it's a viable way to counteract what they're trying to do, right? I mean, it's another thing for them to go around.
Yeah, I think there's enough bench damage. Like when Mew Bench Barrier was in the format, it was played in some decks, not all decks, and there wasn't as much sniping, I don't think, early
there
on.
was not as much sniping at all.
But there's a ton now. Like Pokemon's really designed that, and basically you want one of these in, for the time being at least, one of these in every deck, I would say. And so, yeah, if you have a deck that you want to keep built, have a Manaphy. If you want to have another deck that is fully built and you don't want to have to take the Manaphy out, buy another Manaphy. That's like, honestly, that's just one of those cards. It's the same as Luminion, to be frank. You're just kind of like, it's a one of this and a one of that, and you should be good to go on utilities.
I think when Mew was around, there was never really, I don't ever think there was a deck that played two Mews.
No.
Two Bench Barrier Mews. I'm like thinking the only one that I could like think of maybe was like a Rangaroo Control. But even then, like I don't think so. Yeah. And I played that deck a lot. Like that was my main deck of the Cosmic Eclipse format. But I think if you buy two Manaphys, you're going to be set. These cards are going to be dirt cheap because they're uncommons.
They're actually a rare.
Oh well,
it's an uncommon in Japanese. I will say it's an uncommon in Japanese. But I was looking at the ETB booklet because I was like, I did not pull a Manaphy from my box.
It's a regular rare, right?
Yeah, it's just a regular rare, but I did not pull a Manaphy from my box or my ETB, so I have no Manaphys. I have an Arceus V-Star, but no Manaphys. So
something that Pokemon collectors and players thought they would never say. But I mean, either way, even if it's just a regular rare, like it's still going to be really cheap. I mean, just look at the past couple sets, like what the rare cards are. Even like something like Chinchino. I mean, Chinchino's gotten a couple different prints, but it wouldn't surprise me if Manaphy got like, a shiny version, if we get another like Hidden Fates set type deal.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, they tend to do that with
for this card to be cheap.
Yeah. Other cards, I would say, I guess I'll do two cards real quick because I think they both have similar purposes, which are both Liepard and is it Bibarel or Bibarel?
I don't really know, but I think people know what Pokemon we're talking about.
Yeah, the one that evolves from Bidoof, everybody's favorite. So yeah, if you play Bibarel, you get to play Bidoof in your deck, which is already a win.
Dubs.
Dubs right there. But both of these cards are effectively, they allow you to draw cards. Liepard is like Zoroark GX, where you discard a card, you draw two as an ability once per turn. And Bibarel has once per turn, draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So both of these, you're not using them for anything other than the card draw. And yeah, it's just basically like, cool, like you can draw some cards. Some decks don't need this, to be frank. It just doesn't make sense. But a lot of decks that like want to see lots of card draw that don't have the engine of like Genesect or Alcremie, like the Shadow Rider, these could be interesting cards that start making their way into decks that don't want to use the Drizzile or actually once that engine, the Inteleon engine leaves standard, once that Drizzile rotates at the end of the year, I think these will shoot up in price a bit. So getting these while another engine is in format, like a 2/2 line of each is probably a good bet.
I'm going to say, this is my hot take, that you need to buy a 4/4 Liepard.
Oh,
I'm just going to be honest. I think you need to buy a 4/4 because look at this card and look at what it's like. We do currently have a stage 1 kind of baby Pokemon, not an ultra rare, that has the discard 1 from your hand, draw 2 ability, and that is Chinchino. Chinchino is pretty good. It's seen a lot of face time during its tenure, and this is my opinion, Rapid Strike Malamar is going to get pretty good once rotation happens. So with that, once Chinchino leaves, you mentioned rotation at the end of the year. Liepard is going to be that substitute. Sure, it has 100 HP. It's not searchable with level ball anymore, but I think it's still got that same good effect. I mean, trade is just a good ability. It can work out with a lot of different archetypes, with a lot of different Pokemon and what they're trying to do. We will have the Manaphy in format, right? So it's going to be protected immediately. I think you buy a 4/4 of these because I think especially once rotation happens, this card is going to see a lot of play and it's going to shoot up in price once it sees a lot of play. So, I mean, don't go out and pre-sale buy it right now, but get these sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's fair because it could turn into Drizzile, Sword and Shield based Drizzile, where it's not $40, but it's $5.
Yeah, it's not gonna burn a hole in your pocket.
No.
But again, being efficient with your money, getting the most bang for your buck, buying these shortly after the full release of Brilliant Star.
Jake, are there any other Pokemon that you would suggest looking into for players?
I think one that is a little bit niche is going to be Floatzel. So Floatzel, a lot of people are saying, is the bring back of control cards, control decks. Floatzel has the 1 water attack float, put 2 item cards from your discard pile into your hand. We've seen this attack before with Junk Hunt Sableye, which was very, very prevalent in its time. So I think that Floatzel is not going to have the same effect in terms of impact, but I do think that Floatzel is a good Pokemon to get. I mean, it's going to be cheap. It's going to be just a rare.
It's an uncommon.
Oh, it's an uncommon. Okay, so you're going to get these dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially for control players, I mean, I think this is going to be a thing that you have around. I mean, Zoroark's, right? The Zoroark card that's in standard format right now. Stage 1, go into any other stage 1. So you might not even have to buy the Weasels at times. You can just buy the Zoroark line and the Floatzel itself. So I think it's cool. It's a little bit more niche because naturally not as many people are going to play control, but I think you could pick a couple of these up. Maybe I would just buy a playset, to be honest, because they're going to be so cheap if they're an uncommon. Might as well just get a playset.
Yeah, you'll probably be able to find a playset some places for $1, a whole playset. A couple weeks after this comes out, I don't think that the control archetype is going to be immediately amazing. So, definitely a good pickup if that's a play style you have interest in. Definitely.
Easy. Sean, what's up next for you?
Honestly, there's no other Pokemon that I would say that I would tell people to go out and get immediately. So I would actually scroll down to the supporters, but I don't want to skip over a Pokemon if you have one.
I will say that the Chinchino.
Okay.
The Chinchino, I've talked a little bit about Minchino, and how it's super, super good right now in format. I will say that this is the little basic one that you will want to play, this Cinccino that's come out. This is the little basic that you'll want to play because its first attack is Call for Family. And Call for Family, if you do not know, search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon and put them on your bench. That's just infinitely better than what we have right now. So if you want to play Rapid Strike Malamar or you want to play any other deck that uses the Cinccino line, just go ahead, buy a playset of these. Because they're gonna be the only basic that you should be using, in my opinion.
Yes, that's a very good call out. If you're playing the Minchinos, you have a new baby. You have a new stage, basic to put into that deck.
You have a baby that you need to replace.
All right, getting into like the trainers, supporters. In the interest of time, Jake, I'm going to name my supporters that I would say to pick up. None of these should be expensive, to be frank, because all the ones that are rares are cards that already exist, like Boss's Order and Research. So I would say it probably behooves you to pick up a playset of all of these. It would be Sharon's Care, Kindler, and Roseanne's Backup. Those are the 3 that I would maybe go out of my way to make sure you have. Marnie's Pride is maybe a close 4th as well, because it's actually, it's like it's competitive with Raihan, right? I still think Raihan is probably better, but
Raihan's way better.
But the fact that you don't have to have something be knocked out in order to do it, right? So like early game, if you need energy acceleration in a deck, that doesn't have it, right? Like, I don't know what deck that is anymore, but like, there may come a time when Marnie's Pride is decent over Raihan, but it's a toss-up. But those are the 3: Roseanne's Backup, Kindler, and Sharon's Care for me.
I think you need to add Cynthia's Ambition. Okay. So in my opinion, Cynthia's Ambition like almost replaces Bruno. Like I'm looking at my Rapid Strike Malamar. I keep going back to Rapid Strike Malamar. Most fun deck in format, hands down. You look at Cynthia's Ambition, that's going to replace the Brunos. If you don't know what Cynthia's Ambition does, draw cards until you have 5 in your hand. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, draw until you have 8 cards instead. The fact that you don't have to discard any of those cards, the fact that you don't have to lose any of those cards in your hand, right? And it draws 1 more card than Bruno did. When you don't have a Pokemon that's knocked out. Bruno is draw 4 normally. Cynthia is draw 5. So I just think that Cynthia's Ambition is just pretty good. I think a lot of single prize, if you're playing a single prize deck, you should definitely use Cynthia's Ambition. If you're using a deck that maybe needs to utilize resources a little bit more, definitely, like if you're going to steer away from Professor's Research, you have Cynthia's Ambition as the card. I think this card's pretty good. I think it's going to get a lot of hype. Because, I mean, not to bag on you, Sean, but Marnie's Pride, I don't think is a great card.
I mean,
I'm going to be honest.
It's especially not good now because it's discard to only benched, but it does not specify a type of Pokemon and it does not specify a type of energy. So I think it does have some flexibility, and it does not specify like anything that your opponent did on their previous turn. So there may come a time, is all I'm saying, where certain decks don't have an alternative, You
You just play like a 1-of for your Lumineon? Like,
I don't know. I don't know. I am not sure. I
will say, because we're getting Lumineon V in the format, that is going to allow some of those like kind of wackier tech 1 of supporters in your deck, because again, you can easily search for it. So maybe that is one that you just go out, look for, and find. But Sean, the item cards, we are getting some insane item cards, which honestly, I mean, get play sets of all 3 of these bonkers item cards that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. I think Blunder Policy you could maybe not worry about immediately unless you're playing a coin flip deck. Otherwise, Choice Belt and Ultra Ball, those will be staples in the format the entirety of their reign. 30. I
Choice
mean,
Belt, if you do not know, it's a tool card.
yes.
Do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon V, which I mean the format is literally just like Pokemon V, V Max, V Star. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from your hand if you do. Search your deck for a Pokemon. Just any Pokemon. Doesn't have to be a basic. Doesn't have to be, I mean, it can be a V Star, all that stuff. We've seen Ultra Ball many, many times. Put it in your hand. Sorry, Sean. I think I cut you off.
Oh, no. I was just saying, yeah, it was just, they're both amazing cards. Ultra Ball will always be good. Just the end. Choice Belt, until they print another heavy hitter type that isn't a V type, which who knows? Maybe it will be Alpha Pokemon. I don't know. Who knows?
We did pose that question on our
did.
Twitter. What Pokemon do you want to see as an alpha Pokemon, hypothetically?
So, and that will happen at some point. But for now, Choice Belt is just like, if you expect to play against Pokemon V, which you should, it will be in your deck.
Yeah, I mean, I literally think pretty much every deck should play this. The only thing that really like holds it back, in my opinion, is that we don't have a way, like we used to have Adventure Bag.
That's true.
Search your deck for up to 2 tool cards and put them in your hand. Like that card was so cool and it was so good and it was so good for so many decks. We don't really have that right now. The best way we have to find the Choice Belt is like the Drizzile engine, using the Shady Dealings ability to go find certain cards, which I mean, it's not bad by any means.
Yeah. We have Drizzile.
It's not a bad way.
We have Drizzile. We have Raihan.
Yeah, we have Raihan as well.
And we have Arceus V-Star.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Arceus V-Star, you find, is it any 2 cards?
2 cards, just 2 cards.
Yeah, it's just any 2 cards.
So there are a couple of cards, but I think your point is well taken, which is like Adventure Bag gets you 2 tool cards as an item card. And you can play 4 of those in your deck.
Card, right? It's not your V-Star power, right? It's not an ability to where you would maybe want a supporter instead, or like a quick ball, level ball. Like Adventure Bag was an item card specifically meant for tool cards if you play tool cards. So like that's what made Adventure Bag so good and like so ideal.
But, I mean, yeah, play sets of those. And then honestly, the everything else, the Double Turbo and the Magma Basin, play sets of those, just to be frank, like Double Turbo, you could maybe, you'll pull a lot of them. You probably don't have to buy them. But like, I would even say 8 Double Turbo Energies is not an unreasonable thing. Because like, it's effectively double colorless for everything that isn't a 1-prizer. And that's just going to get played in a lot of decks. It just is. So I
like
could
if you have no hope, if you're in this like weird middle ground as an attacker of not one-shotting things, but you can 2-shot things, especially if you're doing 20 less damage with this turbo energy. Like, I mean, if you're never gonna one-shot something, like
doesn't matter.
I would honestly, what?
It doesn't matter exactly.
Yeah, like I would just honestly play these. Like even like Arceus V-Star, right? Like Arceus V-Star has the 3 colorless attack for its attack of accelerating energies. Like it wouldn't surprise me if Double Turbo was in Arceus V-Star decks.
Oh yeah, no, because if you attack on the turn that you put the Arceus V down, and then you can attach the Double Turbo on the following turn. So the same turn that you're evolving, you're attacking. You don't have to play any supporters. You don't have to play any other weird energy acceleration. And then you accelerate 3 basics. And you're doing 180 damage, which is still setting up a 2-hit KO. Like, obviously this card was printed with Arceus V-Star in mind, to be frank. So, and even if you don't have it in hand, you can Evo into the Arceus V-Star, be like, I'm gonna go grab my Double Turbo. You could play 1 in your deck. Go grab it when you Evo. And like, it's just broken. It's broken.
You can grab like Melanie Double Turbo.
Sure.
Or you could grab Magma Basin, the stadium that I mentioned earlier that you should buy a playset of.
Yeah.
Magma Basin Double Turbo. And you could just, I mean, there's so many different like cool things.
Yeah. So it's
so many different possibilities.
It's good stuff. But
and we'll go over them all here on the Metapod podcast. It was kind of a slower Newsweek, I would say. So I'm glad that we were able to do this like little buy list kind of thing. We've gone over the sets before. Shout out also to Justin Basil for the website. We use Justin's website for looking at the cards because he lays it out in a very, very neat thing. You know, for collectors, you can look at all the different categories of rarities, you know, that are in the set. For players, you can look at, you know, the categories of the cards, you know, utility Pokemon, attacking Pokemon, supporters, items, everything else. And that's what we were doing, you know, that's what we were using. So super shout outs. I want all the full art supporters, whether that's from the trainer gallery or the regular. There's some good ones out there. Also, really need the Mimikyu alternate art VMAX. Sean, what's the number one card you want from Brilliant Stars before we end?
I don't know. I already pulled it. Arceus V-Star.
Okay, then what's the second one you want the most?
I mean, probably a Charizard V-Star.
Okay, Sean is going for those V-Stars.
I mean, they're cool. I like the V-Star. They look cool.
I mean, I don't blame you. I think the V-Stars are really, really cool cards. I think the art is really well done on them, and I think they're really, really sweet.
Yeah, and then after that,
probably also like the best Charizard art we have.
Yeah, it's the best one we've had since like one of the like level X's or the primes or whatever. Like, it's been a minute since we've had Charizard art that good.
I should say ultra rare Charizard art, because I will say the Vivid Voltage Charizard was pretty sweet card.
That's true.
The pre-release promo.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
That is fair. So.
Which I own, by the way. Ha ha ha!
Just a little.
But
flex.
Anyways, thank you for listening to the Metapod podcast. Leave us reviews. Leave us reviews over on Apple and leave ratings on Spotify. We get 100 ratings on Apple and Spotify. We will start doing more content for you all over on the YouTube. Subscribe to our official YouTube.